Well, welcome back to the Riverside Stadium. As you can see, when it rains, it pours for Middlesbrough. That's because Middlesbrough were unable to secure a victory against Oxford United at the Riverside Stadium on Saturday afternoon. Of course, Middlesbrough had fallen to a 3-1 defeat against Coventry on Monday evening. This was seen as the perfect match to try and bounce back, to try and get back to winning ways against a side who were sitting 23rd in the table, not really performing all that well, not really showing much in the way of fight or battling qualities, not really a side who looked like they were going to be able to cause Middlesbrough many problems, but Middlesbrough just unable to break them down. Middlesbrough 25 shots against Oxford at the Riverside, which was pretty mental, really. The first half was a frustrating one. To go back to team news, Kim Hellberg made 3 changes to his side. Dale Fry came in for Luke Ayling. Jeremy Sarmiento started the game, and David Strelec came into the other side as well, with Hellberg looking to do something a little bit different. Of course, it was only 5 days ago since that Coventry game, so making changes to freshen things up and give players a bit of a rest, people like Riley McGree, and to give some valuable minutes to some of Middlesbrough's more attacking players. But it was always quite clear what this game was going to be. It was always going to be attack versus defence. It was always going to be Middlesbrough dominating possession, Oxford sitting back and trying to cause problems. But to be fair, Oxford had a couple of chances early on. You could probably say that in the opening exchanges they looked the more dangerous side. I think even through the duration of the first half they did have some really good opportunities. Of course, they hit the woodwork twice during the match as well. A really fizzing effort from Stan Mills rattled the crossbar in the first half, and then just shortly before the half-time break they also hit the post as well with Pert Harris doing so. Middlesbrough did have opportunities in the first half, but it just didn't really click. Oxford sitting back, not really allowing Middlesbrough to create much. The second half was more of an improvement. I've got to say, Middlesbrough created a lot more opportunities. They did have chances through Callum Britton. Hayden Hackney fired one over the crossbar. David Strelec came close. A few opportunities there, none that were real. None that were great opportunities, to be honest. None that spring to mind as a surefire goal. A lot of half chances, a lot of Oxford bodies on the line trying to stop Middlesbrough from finding the way through. It was just a lot of shots that were blocked, a lot of trying to get through a crowded penalty area, and just not really having that success, really. I mean, it was 26 shots that Middlesbrough had in the end. It looked like Middlesbrough could have got the win in the end. We really were pressing on in the second half, kind of getting in and around the penalty area, sort of horseshoeing around the penalty area and getting a few opportunities. It looked like we could and should have maybe got the goal, but ultimately just a lack of quality in the final third just kind of cost us, really. We didn't really, like I said, we didn't really have anything in the way of clear-cut chances, a lot of blocked shots, a lot of blocked crosses, a lot of headed clearances, that sort of thing. Not really much to say that we should have maybe scored. Riley McGree did have a penalty appeal as well. He came on in the second half, and he was shoved over by an Oxford defender in the penalty area. He was appealing for a penalty after the match as well. He was appealing to the referees, clearly remonstrating the fact that he should have had a spot kick for that one. I think, in my opinion, it was probably a bit 50-50. It's, I guess, that cliche of I have seen them given. I've also not seen them given, and of course Middlesbrough were pretty desperate at that point. But I think what was more frustrating about the 0-0 draw than anything was, yes, the fact that we had a lot of opportunities. Yes, we had lots of chances to try and get that winning goal, to get that 3 points. But when you looked elsewhere in the Championship and what else had happened, Coventry had played at lunchtime, they'd got a win, so getting a win would have been great for keeping up with them. Of course, they overtook us on Monday evening, but then you look at the rest of those sort of chasing teams, Ipswich, Millwall, Hull City, all in action at 3 p.m. on Saturday, all of them losing their games. It was a real opportunity for Middlesbrough, a real chance to try and get a win. If we could have got a win, we would have been absolutely laughing with those sides all losing. It would have meant that we would have been head and shoulders above that chasing pack. It would have been a great position to be in, but ultimately you have to look at it and think that maybe getting a point against Oxford, while it looks disappointing on paper against the side who were 23rd, when you've had that many chances to come away without a win, maybe it will prove to be a point gained in the context of this season. I mean, it's going to be a really tight promotion battle. A point could be absolutely crucial, and ultimately we are a point better off on those teams than what we were at the start of the day, with all of those sides losing. So it was a frustrating one. I do think that Middlesbrough will come away from it frustrated. I think fans will be frustrated as well at the fact that we weren't able to get the victory against a side who were struggling in the table. But credit to them, they did perform well, and they did make it really difficult for ourselves. And I think when you were looking in the press conferences, I've just come from there, and Matt Bloomfield, he was paying lots of compliments to Middlesbrough side and saying that he had to set up his side that way because you can't go toe-to-toe with Middlesbrough and try and get a result. You have to try and frustrate them, and that's exactly what they did, so it was a valuable point for them. Kim Hellberg then came in, and from his point of view, he was just really frustrated. I think from what I've seen, I've been in quite a few of his press conferences now, that was probably the most frustrated that I'd seen him. He was clearly a little bit aggravated at the fact that Middlesbrough had so many chances and weren't able to put them away. We weren't able to capitalise on that dominance, particularly in the second half. Frustrated at the fact that the first half we weren't as good as what we should have been. Also seemed a bit frustrated at the fact that Oxford had come with such a low block and were sort of playing a kind of almost like an anti-football sort of style, trying to stop Middlesbrough from playing. It seems like, of course, he's a bit of a purist. He would love an open game that would play perfectly into Middlesbrough's hands, but we didn't get that, and so he did seem quite frustrated. He was asked about Jeremy Sarmiento. Of course, he made his first start against Oxford. He was asked how he played, and his first answer was just okay. He then expanded on it and said that it was a difficult game for him, and of course he'd been training well, but it perhaps wasn't the ideal game for him. Again, the same with David Strelec. He was starting for the first time in a little while, and again, he said similar to Sarmiento, wasn't the greatest game, but again, it was quite difficult circumstances to try and put in a good performance. So, real frustration all round. Middlesbrough weren't able to get the win against Oxford. I think from that point of view, it is 2 points dropped. You are looking at the rest of the table and thinking that if Middlesbrough could have got that win, we could have been in a really, really good position. But maybe, just maybe, if you zoom out, look at the season as a whole, think that obviously nothing's been decided this weekend, but if you're looking at it, we are a point better off than what we were. We've got a point more in terms of there's a point greater gap, if that makes sense, on those teams behind us in the table, so that's a really good thing. Yes, Coventry won, which is frustrating, but we are going to have these sorts of games. Hopefully Middlesbrough will learn from it, hopefully Kim Hellberg will learn from it, and we'll be able to do what we can to try and win these games in future, because ultimately these games could play a massive role in whether Middlesbrough are able to secure promotion from the Championship. It's this sort of game where you just think if we can nick a win in a few of these games, that can be the difference between staying in the Championship or getting promoted. We weren't able to do it today, but hopefully, given the fact that we did have like 25 chances against Oxford, we will be able to put that right next time round. The next time we have a game like this, of course, we've got Leicester City coming up very, very soon on Tuesday night, I believe it is. So yeah, that was another opportunity for Middlesbrough to go out and try and get a really positive result. I think Leicester will come to play a little bit more than what Oxford would, so maybe that'll play into Middlesbrough's hands a little bit more. But yeah, frustration at the Riverside. You can see the rain coming down, certainly raining in the Middlesbrough dressing room at the moment, because there will be some frustrated faces in there at the fact that we weren't able to get 3 points against a side that we should have quite clearly got 3 points against. So I'll be reviewing this game in the next couple of days. We'll also be looking ahead to the Leicester City game here on Bonkers for Boro. If you have enjoyed this, please do hit like, please do hit subscribe as well, and I will catch up with you here on Bonkers for Boro next time.